I like getting gifts.
You do? Should we give him a gift?
Yeah, let's give him a gift.
Alright, we have a nice gift here for Aaron. It's a good thing you clapped, because if you didn't clap, we would have just had to go this way. Okay, so here you go, Aaron.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you.
All you.
Any guesses? Anybody?
No, that's it.
What if I saw it?
Jeans? No? Oh, it's a jersey.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Pretty impressive, right? Yeah.
I like it too.
No problem. Not for Julie. I have one gift. All right.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. Aren't you gonna, put it on?
I mean, I just really like it, so I think I'm just gonna, whenever I feel like wearing it, I'll wear it. So, I'll just use it whenever I feel like it.
But I gave you guys.
All right, so that was very inspiring. Hopefully it inspired all of you to want to go out and do a lot on your college campus. But recognizing that Christ is through, with, and in me is very, very powerful, if you think about it. It's a little scary, too. So, but we should be excited and confident knowing that Christ is within us with this seal, and you shouldn't necessarily be scared of living that out. So today I'm more going to talk about, basically my focus is how do we do the Father's will and this grown-up version of what would Jesus do. So with the grown-up version of what would Jesus do, you think when you're a little kid, you think, oh, it's simple stuff like you said, so I find a wallet on the ground, and you return it to the person instead of picking it up, taking $5, and then giving it back to the person. So with the grown-up version, it's more so stepping out of your comfort zone and doing those things that are more proactive instead of just obeying. It's more doing and trying to do these great actions. So one quote that I found that was very applicable, I'll just take you back this is through my personal journey a little bit. But in the first letter to the Corinthians, Paul says, "Behold, I tell you a mystery, we shall not all sleep, but we shall all be changed." So this was very applicable to sort of my life. As many of us here, I grew up as a Catholic. My family was Catholic, and before I came to college, I just sort of went to church on Sundays, and I thought that was really all I was supposed to do, was just to go to church, and that was enough. So basically, I was asleep in the faith. I was asleep. Some of my friends, they thought I was doing a good job because they're like, wow, you go to church every Sunday? They're like, I'm just like a JV Catholic. I just go to church, and then my brother likes to call them Cheesters. I don't know if you guys say that, but Christmas, Easter Catholics. So I didn't really think, I've never been on a retreat like this or do anything like that. But, so basically my faith got awakened though, and I woke up when I got to Ryder. At first, my parents were kind of like, I don't know if Ryder's the right fit for you. We think you should go here. And my soccer coaches were like, well, neither of those are good schools. You should go here. So everybody's kind of pulling me in different directions. And I visited Ryder, and I was kind of like, you know what? This just feels right. So luckily now, I picked going to Ryder, and I realized the opportunities there between my major with playing sport, and most importantly, with my faith. I've really grown in my faith since I've been to Ryder. I started to get involved in Catholic campus ministry, thankfully mostly Father Jacob prodding me the whole time, like, hey, you coming over to the house? Coming over to the house? But that's really been an important moment, and that sort of awoke my faith in me. And looking back on this, I realized that I firmly believe that was God's plan for me, that I was really intended to come to school here. So recognizing that we have that mark, here's just two examples of sort of God working through me. So I don't want to seem like I'm out there preaching all over campus and stuff like that, but there's simple things you can do. So for example, my teammates sort of call me the Bible boy on the team and stuff like that. So, I get made fun of all the time. I'm in the locker room before a game and I'll just be sitting there at my locker and they're like, saying a prayer or something, can I talk to you? I'm like, yeah, you can talk to me, I'm just listening to music. And they're like, oh, well, is it Christian music? It's everything, no matter what I say, always comes back to that. So, but the important thing I've realized is whenever any of them are having a tough time, they all trust me. And they know that they can come to me and talk to me about something in their life that they might be struggling with or going through a tough time. And they just feel that I'm a friend that they can come talk to. And to be honest, they'll come to me a lot of the time, present me with a problem, and they'll be like, so what should I do? I'll be like, I don't know. But I want to help them. So I'll sit there and sort of have a conversation with them, and stuff will just start popping in my head, and I'll just say stuff. And I sort of realized that, like, most of the time then, I'll just be like, okay, hopefully I said the right things. And then they'll leave and be like, you know what, Eric? Like, that really made sense to me, thanks. And I was like, okay, good. So, but I realized then, after talking with them, then it's really like God working through me. And they like, I mean, I just sort of, I don't necessarily say like, oh, you have to go to church with me every Sunday now and stuff like that. But I just try and like point them and be like, hey, why don't you come back to church one time? Like try it. Like try and just reconnect. Like God's always there for you. Just say a prayer or something like that. And they, or I'll just say, hey, I'm praying for you or something like that. And I realized that like God's really sort of working through me and telling me what to say in those moments and helping me to connect with my teammates through those hard times. And also another example of how God sort of worked through me, I've taken 2 sort of classes which are a little controversial topics with the Catholic faith. So one is biomedical ethics. So we talked a lot about abortion, stem cell research, and things like that. And a lot of the kids in my class were science majors and had a more secularist view on things than the Catholic Church necessarily teaches. So there'd be times in class where people were just like, I literally felt ganged up on in class most of the time. Because there's only about like 15, 20 students, and it'd be like me, I felt like I was like, yes, me against the world. Like, holding down the fort. So but they'd be saying stuff, and they'd be like, so, I know the Catholic Church says this, but that doesn't make any sense. And I'd be like, well, no, it kind of makes sense. Like, not this way. So then I'd sort of like explain stuff, and they'd be like, so what about this? And I'd just felt like, once again, I'd be on the spot, and I'd be like, and something would pop in my head and be like, and I'd just spit it out. And they'd be like, wow, that makes sense. Yes. So I realize now, like, a lot of that time, it wasn't necessarily like, I'm not some super genius. Like, I really firmly believe that God was working through me in those moments and was placing those little things and was sort of tapping me in the back of the brain, being like, ooh, I think you should say this right now. I realized he was working through me in those moments. And there's little chance things like that that you encounter in your life. And unless you're not, like, looking for it, like, while I was in class, I wasn't necessarily being like, oh, thank you, God, I know you inspired me there. But looking back, I'd be like, wow. I think that was really him. That was really Jesus working through me in those moments, standing up for the faith. So like I was saying, like it doesn't have to be a huge aha moment where you're like, God will come down and you smack you on the head and be like, this is what you should say. But it's really like if you embrace your faith and recognize that mark, he starts to live through you in these small ways. So really, like today, I encourage all of you to recognize that mark inside of you, embrace it, live it out, and make a positive impact on your campus. But how can we do that in little ways besides like talking about the faith in class, sort of some other ways? So I know everyone proudly supports sports teams for the most part here. And how do you do that? You wear like a hat or you wear a t-shirt and you're like, yes, I'm a Giants fan, they just won the Super Bowl or something like that. But a lot of us are afraid to sort of like wear our faith on our sleeve or something. So like I'm recommending that you all put on your jersey of faith.
That was very kind.
I mean, I don't know how Katie knew to give me a jersey today. Who would have known?
God went through here.
Yes. So, and this jersey of faith has to stay on. I know it's a little figurative though. You don't have to actually wear like a jersey that says, yes, I'm Catholic. But you should keep that jersey on at all times. So, like Katie was offended whenever I just was like, oh, thanks for the gift, I'll wear it whenever I want. So you shouldn't be able to be on campus and be like, oh, I'm going to be Catholic right now. And then somebody, like, you're out at a party or something, and people are drinking and necessarily not doing the right thing, and you're out there and you're like, all right, I'll take off my jersey. Hey guys, I'm going to join in with you. I'm not going to be Catholic anymore, like, for this little half hour, and then I'll come run back to Christ and be like, oh, I'm sorry. So, I mean, we really need to try and wear this jersey of faith throughout all of our actions in our lives. And I keep on mentioning actions, and I want to like make the point that actions sort of speak louder than clothing, not words, but words as well. So you don't have to necessarily be a Tim Tebow, who is like a pro athlete. Everybody sees him, and he like goes and is preaching all the time. Not preaching, but like really speaking to faith after games and stuff like that, making sure everybody knows his faith. You just have to be doing it through little actions, and people still notice it. So, for example, like I'll be in Dailies, which is our dining hall for you TCNJ people who've never been to Ryder. If we're in Dailies before meals, just sit there and make a little quick sign of the cross, say a prayer, and before you start to eat. And all the time, somebody will notice you and be like, dude, what are you doing? I'll just be like, oh, I'm just praying before I get to eat. Like, I'm thankful that I have food here. And they're like, oh, okay. And people just notice stuff like that. And then sometimes it'll spark a conversation and be like, oh, so are you Catholic? And just stuff like that. And then you just get talking. And most of the time, people will say, oh, yeah, I'm Catholic too. And I'll be like, oh, that's great. Like, you go to church? No. Stuff like that. Unfortunately. So, but it's just little stuff like that. And people start to notice. And then also little things like on Sunday, I'll be dressed up, walking out the dorm in the morning. People are like, what are you all dressed up for? And I'm like, I'm going to church. And they're like, oh, okay, have fun. I'm like, you want to come with me? Maybe next week. And then like, when next week rolls around, you see them again, you're like, you want to come to church with me? Yeah, exactly. Maybe next week. And then sometimes people be like, all right, I'll go with you next week. And then you get them, and you just prod them, and you're like, all right, you're coming to church with me. And they're like, all right, I'll come. So just little things like that. You can convince your friends to come to church with you and sort of hold each other accountable. Because there's some Sundays where people necessarily are like, oh, I got so much homework, or I'm not like, I really want to go home this Sunday. I guess I'll just, well, I was in the car driving, so it's all right. God will understand. I didn't go to church. So it's just putting church as a priority and keeping people accountable, basically. Because we're sort of trying to act as Christ here on earth, so we should be trying to help other people, like stay accountable as well. Like we should want other people to keep us accountable. So also another big thing you can do is just take advantage of all the CCM stuff that's offered to you. I know Father Bill and Father Jacob worked very, very hard to try and provide us with all the opportunities to stay as close to Christ as we can. And that's great ways just to, even the fact that you have to go to an event, people are like, where are you going? I'll just be like, oh, I'm going to a Catholic Campus Ministry event. And they're like, well, what are you doing? I'm going to Wednesday night dinner, we get food. And they're like, oh, we get food? All right. That's basically how it works. And then they get there and they're like, oh, so this is like a church thing. But, but I mean, it's the things that, besides the food, it's just being there with friends who understand the faith and really connect with you. And if you have an issue, you have people that you can trust and talk to, and it's building those relationships with those people. So just adding that to your routine and making sure that you keep that as a focus of your day is very important as well. And the last thing I wanted to leave you guys with that you can also sort of do is you can add something to your routine, which I heard a priest say one time, if you aren't growing, you're dying. Which sort of makes, I started to think about it and I was like, well, that's a little scary. Because basically, I don't think I'm getting any taller, so. But I thought about it in a faith, like a figurative sense, like he was trying to intend. So basically, if you stop trying to get better and do stuff and grow in your faith, you can't really stay the same. It's basically impossible. People are like, the devil's going to pick at you and sort of throw things at you, and slowly your faith is going to start to decline if you stop trying to get better with it. And if that faith starts to decline, you let that go, you're dying in your faith. And you need to make sure that you're always going uphill and always growing in that faith. So I forget who it was. Somebody mentioned the UCAT in their talk. Cheryl? Awesome.
Quoted all over the place.
Yes. So that's one thing that you could do. I personally, Father got us the UCAT novels for our board, and I just started reading like a page or two a night, or a chapter a night before I go to sleep. And it's a good way to you can do it in the morning, so you're like, yes, start the day off on a good foot. Start with something positive. Or you can do it at night before you go to sleep and be like, all right, no matter what happened today, I still learned something, got closer to Christ, and today was a good day. So just adding something simple like that into your routine, and to hold yourself accountable to that routine is very important. such a great way to sort of, and then people notice it. So like my roommate, he's like, why do you always pick up that book at night? Like, it seems like you've been reading it for like months. It's like, well, I just read like a page or two a night about like, and just learn a little bit about the Catholic faith. And he's like, okay, whatever, good night. So, but I mean, people will notice, and now I've noticed like recently he's just more and more talkative with me about stuff like that. And he'll like go look through it and be like, oh, okay. And it's just little things like that. People notice, is basically what I'm trying to say. People notice these little actions and these little things where God's inspired you through the day, and you won't necessarily realize it when you're doing it, but looking back, you can realize that God really does act through each one of us. And it's a big responsibility that we have as Catholics, because sometimes we might be the only person that people associate with our faith. People will see us and run into us, talk to us, and that they might think of us as being like, so they say, oh, Eric, oh yeah, he's Catholic, all Catholics must be like him. Because that might be the only person that they know or have had a conversation with about the Catholic faith. So that's a big responsibility. But Christ is always with us, and he's always guiding us through our actions and our words. And so we can feel confident knowing that he's always there with us. And now that we realize how impressive Christ is, we can allow him to impress his will upon us and work through us, and then help others to encounter that never-ending love. So that's sort of like my personal story and just a ways you can live it out. And then Katie's going to finish up sort of with how her suggestions for living it out as well.